Hey everybody, how's it going? So it looks like Sony might be building towards their Sinister Six movie for Spider-Man 4, and what I mean by this is basically the upcoming slate of Sony Marvel movies seems more now than ever leading towards Sinister Six, definitely if anything else leading towards an MCU crossover, since movies like Morbius and potentially Venom 2 will be teasing non-stop a connection to Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which Sony seems pretty giddy about, but of course Marvel Studios has been rather hush-hush on. Now, this actually has been a movie pursued by Sony ever since the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, with tons of hints here and there in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but unfortunately that movie didn't do well, the franchise was cancelled, and that dream of making Sinister Six spin off of it never became a reality. However, then came Spider-Man Homecoming, which introduced Vulture and the Shocker, along with teasing Matt Gargan at the end of the film. And with Spider-Man Far From Home also strategically introducing Mysterio, alongside of providing propaganda for supervillains to team up in the first place against Spider-Man, as he's currently believed to be a wanted criminal on the run. There's just too much at play here, too many commonalities that are building towards Sinister Six to not see this be a thing that happens. Now, the real X factors here is Morbius and Venom 2. Morbius appears to already have the Far From Home storyline woven into the film, assumed to be a plot point, mentioned here and there, but nothing too focused on. Probably is going to be something mentioned more heavily at the end of the movie or a post-credit scene, just to more properly tease Morbius' involvement with either hunting Spider-Man or maybe wanting to find Spider-Man because he's superhuman. Maybe he would have a potential cure for his disorder with his blood. There's tons of potentials out there, but Morbius I see as the wild card member of the team because with his own franchise, he'll likely remain more of an anti-hero and never go full-on villain, so likely he'll be manipulated, blackmailed to joining the team if he does. And with Venom and his whole franchise, I don't see them making Venom an actual member of the Sinister Six, but I definitely can see them kind of forcing a crossover between Venom and Tom Holland's Spider-Man, probably not to fight Carnage, but just in the future, maybe to fight another symbiote or for an entirely different villain altogether for Venom 3, just because it'd be gold in box office. I don't see Sony not doing that, but at the same times, I don't see Sony doing Venom with the Sinister Six, just because from previous attempts at doing the Sinister Six, both with Drew Goddard's version and when the initial spin-off for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was announced, it appeared that Sony really wanted a comic-accurate roster. So, for all intents and purposes, assuming that remains the same, I don't really see them forcing Venom in there, although, never say never, I just don't really see it being that possible, because they already are pretty much stacked with their roster when you fit in Kraven the Hunter. In that movie, from synopses and little teases here and there that have been revealed by scoopers, it blatantly mentions Spider-Man and Kraven hunting the web-slinger, with the movie adapting Kraven's Last Hunt, according to scoopers, which would bring our expected roster for the Sinister Six currently to Vulture, Mysterio, Kraven, Shocker, leaving 4 spots remaining, and if you put Morbius in there, then that's 5, but who's the 6th member? And that's why I don't think Venom will also be a part of it, because likely the 6th member is going to be Scorpion, who was teased in Homecoming and could easily be introduced in Sinister Six, because the character himself could be introduced more so as a mercenary type character who becomes Scorpion in that Spider-Man 4/Sinister Six kind of movie, versus a character like Dr. Octopus, who has a lot of pathos. You'll likely need a whole separate movie to really introduce the character, his motivations, things like that. So I think just because Scorpion's more plug-and-play friendly for a movie like Sinister Six, if it's introduced as the antagonists and villains of Spider-Man 4, just due to that nature, I think Scorpion will probably be the way to go, which brings our expected roster to Vulture, Mysterio, Morbius, Kraven, Shocker, and Scorpion. Now, Norman Osborn I can also see being involved, but not as a member. I don't think MCU is going to do the Green Goblin anytime soon, and even though the Iron Patriot is an enticing prospect, especially with the Thunderbolts or Dark Avengers kind of film, I don't see them going that route immediately. I see them probably going Norman Osborn as more or less an anti-Tony Stark, probably being behind the scenes, funding and/or leading, instructing, organizing, orchestrating, master planning, whatever term you want to use, for the Sinister Six. And it'd be really interesting to see if he's presented as an anti-Tony Stark, because all throughout Spider-Man Homecoming, Civil War, Infinity War, I guess Endgame technically, and Far From Home, with certain references here and there by Happy, Tony was always presented as a supporter, a teacher, a mentor to Spider-Man. So it'd be interesting to see Norman as an anti-Tony Stark being the opposite, more so leading the charge against Spider-Man, defaming Spider-Man, doing things like that. But leave your comments down below. What do you guys think about this? What do you think the Sinister Six lineup will be within the MCU, since it's pretty obvious they're building towards it? And since all the stars are kind of lining up to do it, do you expect Spider-Man 4 to be Sinister Six, or do you think Sinister Six will still be its own movie? Leave your comments down below. We'll see you guys later.